After having spent 44 hours and doing everything there's to do in the game, is Red Dead Redemption worth playing 15 years later, knowing that Rockstar released a port and not a remaster or a remake while charging full price? Let's start with the big question. Should you play Red Dead Redemption 2 before playing Red Dead Redemption 1? As someone who just done that, I generally think you should not, as the sequel spoils a lot of the mysteries in Red Dead Redemption, and that's no fun. It's that mystery that keeps you on your toes throughout the whole experience. Who is John Marston? Why are we chasing his former gang members? How is it gonna end? The story is full of surprises that you won't be see coming, and already in the 10 minutes into the game, we see how big the stakes are. As we experience the former outlaw John Marston is almost killed by his former comrade Bill Williamson, and learning he has to find the three of his former comrades if he wants to see his family again, who are held in captivity in the hands of the feds, who are simply using John as an scapegoat to erase the last remains of the Wild West. Immediately, you're filled with unanswered questions that you want to find out answers to. And what I loved about it, the whole story, is how John Marston is dedication to his family. Even though the odds are against him, the fear of losing his family, it motivates him to keep going. As well as seeing John getting himself involved in civil war in Mexico, getting tricked help of the enemy, not even once figuring out the men he's looking for are closer than he thinks. It's what both comedic and plain stupid. The Mexico arc is my absolute favorite part of the whole story. Although, I have to admit, there were moments when I was just annoyed by John's sense of justice. Like, he could have just avoided so much trouble if he had the guts to say no, or better yet, shoot him in the face. That would have taught him a lesson. And to be fair, now that I think about it, solved a lot of problems. As usual, there's no good without the bad. The last act is my least favorite due to the pacing issues. Much like the previous chapters, you're once again introduced to new characters and new area, except this time around you don't have enough time to get to know them enough. So by the end, when you're supposed to feel sadness and pain, you're more likely to feel nothing. And the all too similar story structure for every main mission begins to take its toll by the end. You start at point A, start the mission, a cut in place, then we get to point B where usually John and the accompanying NPC usually travel to the destination while having a conversation. Once arrived at the destination, usually something goes wrong, a combat section, it usually ends with someone either being saved or getting killed. Rinse and repeat. Overall, the story was great for its time, but looking back at it now from a modern perspective, it gave us enough unresolved questions validating a sequel, but at the cost of rushing bits of the story.
This is a nightmare! Do something quick!
Like any open world game, Red Dead Redemption wouldn't be complete without side quests, or as they're officially called, stranger side missions. They're fun and well written stories that complement the main story. There are 19 in total and range from the usual fetch quests to encountering some insane NPCs with some crazy stories. And much like its sibling franchise GTA, the missions doesn't always appear on the map, rather you discover them randomly as you explore the wild frontier. It was refreshing to experience not having to worry about where to go and simply enjoy the ride, exploring at your own pace. I just wish there were more. At its core, Red Dead Redemption 1 revolves around the honor system. A simple system where the good deeds will make the world around you show their appreciation for the nuns, giving you, for example, free cash to people praising your skills out in the open. Whereas being a bad guy does the opposite, getting chased by the police and to pay more for your arsenal of weapons, always on the run. Essentially, it will decide how your experience will be, as some mini events will occur more if you're a bad guy and vice versa. For example, in one moment you could be heading to your next main mission and suddenly stumble upon an NPC demanding a gun duel or save a whore for a drunk cowboy. And when you think you had enough, the game keeps adding more random moments, keeping you engaged from start to finish. For such an old game, it does a lot of things that keeps your attention, encourage you making your own adventure without feeling overwhelmed, thanks to its minimalistic UI and keeping the world map bare bones, unlike a modern Ubisoft game. but you could almost never experience it if you decide to fast travel a lot. A flaw with the game is that unless you're hooked to the idea of exploring and taking it slow, high chances are you will be skipping a lot on the map. Furthermore, I would have wanted to see more variations, as some of random events appeared more than others, and then there's a lack of animal variety. Seeing the same animals over and over again, it kinda gets boring eventually. And then more missions to encourage you to be a bad guy, or better yet, have missions that would be exclusive to an evil John Marston playthrough. Moving on to the minigames, I don't think I've ever been as addicted to minigames as in a video game like Red Dead Redemption. Having looked back at my recording footage, I would have estimated almost 50% of all the footage is just me playing Texas Hold'em poker or Liar's Dice, as they are that addicting. Honestly, I could go on forever about how addicted I got to minigames, but then the video would be too long, so I'll keep it short. The only thing that frustrated me were the 5-finger fillet game and blackjack, but eventually you get used to them. But as for Horseshoe game, yeah, that one could screw itself, honestly. In regards to my issues with the gameplay, it has to do mainly with the stealth and gun combat. For the stealth, I wish we got more moments in the game where we had to sneak up to enemies and execute them quietly. While it's totally understandable as the game is all about being a gunslinger in the Wild West, it would have helped with minimizing the repetitiveness and not being locked to using guns all the time. I'm sure you could do a stealth approach playthrough, but I believe eventually the enemies will start going guns blazing all over, no matter how careful you are. When speaking of the combat, I have to say it was probably one of the most boring parts of the game, being too repetitive and too easy to use. The game is not using realistic physics for the weapons, so all you really have to do is aim at your enemies' heads and then go on a headshot spree. And enemies will fall even with the weakest guns as long as you have a good aim. So it's even more simplified when you unlock Deadeye level 3 in Act 2. Combat becomes so easy, becomes a cakewalk, being able to massacre dozens of enemies at a time without breaking a sweat. The PC port itself was developed by Double 11, a smaller game studio based in the UK, known for being an assist studio to games like LEGO Harry Potter Collection and Fallout 76. Overall, the experience was good, but could have been better. Having played on a RTX 4060 laptop GPU, it was for the most part a stable experience. I didn't experience any crashes, but occasionally when visiting a settlement like Armadillo Blackwater, you could notice the frame rate will drop, and sometimes I encountered strange bugs like my controller disconnecting. As much as this game was demanding back then, it shouldn't be this demanding even with the latest low-end graphics cards. Because while graphically the game hasn't aged the best, it is thanks to its art direction that it still stands out from a lot of open world games. Till this day, it's hard to explain, as you need to play for yourself to truly understand what I mean. But it's something about the cartoonish shading mixed with the lighting as you travel across the map that makes you stop and admire the view. It just shows how an old game can still look good, while having its own identity, without chasing the best graphics, much like games like Bloodborne, Obra Dinn, or Ghost of Tsushima. The areas in which the game is showing its age are the slow loading scenes. They may not look like it in the video, but when you die a lot, you start to lose patience. Admittedly, we are spoiled with the access to modern SSDs, but can't help but feel you're left with this bad taste in your mouth. Like you can't help but feel the game could have been more optimized. My other disappointment is the lack of support for PlayStation and Nintendo icons. Yes, you heard that right. Despite the PC version being released well a year after the PS4 and Switch versions, your PlayStation controller at least? Well, I haven't tried any Joy-Cons, but I will assume it's the same thing. They won't be recognized, meaning you have to either have to play with mouse and keyboard, an Xbox controller, or use a third-party controller or software to trick the game. Like seriously, it's 2025 and we still can't get native support for modern controllers on PC? What the f***? What Rockstar managed to do in 2010 with Red Dead Redemption is simply astonishing. The storytelling, gameplay, world building, setting the building blocks for what would become Red Dead Redemption 2. Watching John Marston's journey towards a normal life with his nefarious past haunting him is an inspirational tale to tell, and in a way the game tries to convey is to enjoy the moments we have while it's lasts, as you can never be too sure or predict when we lose someone near and dear to us. That is to say, take your time. Despite the story's plot being all about hunting down former allies turned enemies as fast as possible, this game is meant to be played slowly. Explore the open world, do the optional challenges, hunt down animals, be a bounty hunter, save random NPCs, but no matter what you end up doing, your Red Dead Redemption experience will be unique to you. Which makes me disappointed in Rockstar and Double 11. 1. Charging like what? $50 USD for a 15-euro game? It should be at maximum like $20 at best for a port with some additional graphics options. Secondly, despite Red Dead Redemption finally being accessible to modern platforms, you can't help but imagine what a potential remake in the same style as Red Dead Redemption 2 would be. But that's a question for another day. As you know, or if you're new here, I don't rate video games using the score system like from 1 to 10, rather I just give either recommendation or do not recommend, as I can't speak for everyone as everyone has their own opinion. If you're willing to put down the effort to experience a well-written story about redemption and don't mind the aged graphics and gameplay, I can highly recommend Red Dead Redemption 1 when it's on a discount. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos. Every little bit helps with the YouTube algorithm, and I see you in the next one.